Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The rules of procedure are adopted annually to ensure a productive meeting. The select board meetings are in the public, not of the public, meaning the members of the public in attendance are entitled to the opportunity to comment, but the purpose of this meeting is for the board to be able to effectively and efficiently conduct the necessary business to govern the town. All questions and comments are to be directed to the chair, and the rules of procedure indicate that there will be 2 minutes allotted for comment from any single person on any single topic. The rules of procedure are posted in the town hall and are available for anyone to review. Thank you.
All right, so welcome everybody. We've got Bob Jones, my feature, Jessica Van Ort, Tom Collard, Rich Hewlett, and I'm Kristen Powers. And I've got everybody signed in, and I've got everybody online, and our sound is on and everything, hopefully. So before I forget, this is our microphone, so it needs to be spoken into when audience members are talking. It's for PEG TV, so you will not hear yourself talk, but the people at home will. So let's all work together to try to remember this. I have so in new business, John Weiss sent an email out shortly before the meeting tonight that I forwarded along to everybody. If you didn't get a chance to review it, we can take a look at it, but it's talking about, they're thinking about buying a new truck and we'll talk about it in new business. And then Tom Covino had emailed, I'm not sure if Tom's going to make it, but had also asked if the board could talk about maybe some policies that are related to law enforcement that he wanted to run by the board. So is Tom planning to
He's planning on being here. He said he's going to be late, so
okay.
I came in.
So
I don't know what he had planned, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He didn't share it with me.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd probably talk about it. But
All right.
I don't know what he had planned.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So if Tom makes it, that could be under new business as well. Other than that, I have no other additions or deletions. I don't know if anybody else does. No. Okay. So the last minutes that need approval are from our last meeting, which were on March.
Tommy just rolled it. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. March 18th.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Okay.
Second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right. So I think we have Devin and Jill.
Jill's here and Devin?
Yep.
All yours.
There you are.
Thank you. Got some light, non-technical reading. No, I'm kidding. It is highly technical and it is dense, but we'll go through it. Here we go. Okay. I am Devin Neary. I'm the Executive Director of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. Good to see you guys, and congrats on another term, or maybe not. You know, who knows? But thank you again for all you guys are doing. So just as a quick reminder, Municipal Technical Assistance Program, we call it MTAP. I'm here to give an update on the project. So actually a couple years ago, we kicked this whole thing off with sort of determining what potential projects the town would like to investigate through this program. This was a one-time political program that provided funding to regional planning commissions to help towns who are identified as high need, low capacity to develop projects. And really the development of projects was aimed at trying to access that big one-time ARPA and infrastructure funding. So in conversations with you all in the town, we decided to move forward on investigating the West Pawlet wastewater system, primarily for cost savings measures around the operations and maintenance of the facility, as well as investigating sludge storage capacity, because right now the system doesn't have any, and as a result that drives up costs for the remaining users that are on the system. So through this work, and again, this is a no cost to the town, this is all paid for by the program, we produce an RFP for engineering services, and Hoyle Tanner was the engineering firm that was selected, and they have been going through a process of evaluating alternatives. And what you have before you is the draft alternatives report, and that really looked at evaluating several different options. And Jessica Van Ort is generously offered her time to sit on this committee, as she does so many. Thank you, Jess. And working with not only the consultant team, but Jill Marsano as well, who's online with us tonight. She is the operator of your system and works for VTUMS. So she's provided a ton of really great on-the-ground technical experience that has really helped weigh in on these alternatives. So we're at this sort of crossroads now, a major milestone in the project where you all get to decide what direction are we going. Which of these alternatives do we want to select to advance for the next stage? This process won't go all the way through 100% engineering design. We didn't have enough funding to do that. This is really going to get us right to the edge of engineering. So if there were a preferred alternative, we'd look at additional funding sources to do that. Now, before we get too far down the line, there was a really high value, low, quick turnaround funding opportunity that we tried to take advantage of recently. So Senator Welch did a solicitation for projects for the congressionally directed spending. Unfortunately, when they make these requests, both reps and senators, they're like, hey, give us your project, you have about a week. So we did, just because your project was in the pipeline already within the state system, we submitted an application last week on behalf of the town for full funding just to see what would happen. We're not even sure if this project or the CDS projects in a whole will even advance. We know that there's a lot of uncertainty with federal funding. However, it's out there, and that way, if by some string of luck we get it, that would be huge for the town. That would be no cost to do the next phase. But assuming we don't get that, which I think is unfortunately a fair assumption, we still need to sort of decide, okay, which of these alternatives is the preferred alternative. So there are 5 alternatives in your packet. They always start with the first one, which is no change. Just do nothing. What does that mean? What are the costs associated with it? The second alternative is repurposing the existing septic tank as a sludge storage tank. In discussing that, Jill, and I want to give Jill an opportunity here in a second to weigh in, had some very strong reservations about the structural integrity of that tank and whether it could be repurposed or not. And we're unsure at this juncture whether that could or could not happen. The engineering consultant was going to look into, like, could we add strapping or other sort of physical supplements to the tank to see if it could hold more weight. The third alternative is a cast-in-place concrete tank. This was one of the more preferred alternatives from the engineer, just because it's a cheaper cost and it's got a much stronger tank integrity and a longer lifespan, and also you have more opportunity in putting the tank where you want it to go. Alternative 4 is a precast concrete tank, and then alternative 5, which is the most expensive, would be the glass line steel tank. Before I get too far down the line, I did want to give Jill, if you want to add anything to this discussion, or what you as operator feel would be the preferred alternative.
So back 3 years ago, I actually wanted to repurpose the 2 front septic tanks as sludge holding tanks. It's that I sent the drawings off to a structural engineer, and he looked at it and then said, you can't. The walls aren't thick enough. So unless there was some type of engineering that could occur that would add a lot of thickness and strength to the walls of the 2 septic tanks in the front, it's not a viable option as of that review by that engineer 3 years ago, because that would have been quite simple if the tank walls would have had enough strength for the weight of the sludge. So basically right now, 6 inches up, there's 8-inch pass-through pipes that go from each of the tanks. We've got septic tank 1, septic tank 2, equalization tank 1, equalization tank 2. So there are 4 consecutive tanks in the front, 4 consecutive tanks in the back. Those are also the foundation of the building. So they're not just tanks, they're also a foundational floor. They're designed for the water, the sewer water, the wastewater that flows through the plant to just be at 6 feet. So what I was proposing was plugging the holes that were at 6 feet and letting those tanks fill up with sludge, because in the front they're like over 20 feet tall. So we'd have like 12,000 gallons in each tank. But unfortunately the walls aren't strong enough. So if there was a way for the tanks to be repurposed, which in my experience so far, anytime you want to do that, everything has to be cleaned so that humans can actually enter, and it has to be like brandy new for them to enter and make any changes to the tanks and, you know, air quality, etc. Because right now those are hydraulically tied to the tanks in the back, so there's sewer gases and whatnot. So I'm not sure if it's 100% feasible, if there could be structural modifications. So it's kind of like we steered away from that, given that piece of information. So I guess if we move into the alternatives 3 and 4, those seem most feasible to me, although they're far more expensive than I would like them to be. And then the 5th one, which is the glass tank, just seems ungodly expensive for providing the same function that the concrete tanks would provide.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
One thing that was nice, the consultants did, under the alternative 1, no change, sort of do some cost analysis for you all to see like what have been those routine costs for the sludge hauled versus budgeted and actual, and what's the unit cost. So to better understand year over year, what is doing nothing sort of costing the town and the users. And it's not nothing, but the actual has been slightly lower than what was budgeted for. It's been budgeted between $15,000 and $16,000 a year, and in FY24 it came out to about $14,400. And then if you go down all the way to page 5-1, there's a life cycle cost analysis that gives you the sort of breakdown of what would be the year-over-year cost for these different alternatives with labor, maintenance, power, and disposal costs. So as you can see, the biosolids disposal costs would go down. Not super significantly, but you can imagine year over year and cost escalations, it could continue to go up. So I think with any of these options, and Jill is correct, they are expensive. You know, option 3 and 4 are over $700,000. I don't think any of them would be feasible at all without, 100% or slightly less grant funding for something like this to make it truly worth it. But I think the sort of preset worth analysis gives you an idea of in 5.2 not only the construction costs but those operations and maintenance costs as well, which, as you can see, are around $15,000 a year. Any gut reactions or questions or thoughts on this? And I am not the engineer, so I don't know all the technical things. Jill probably can speak much more eloquently to those. But if there are questions, I can bring them to Hoyle Tanner when we sort of go to the next phase on this.
Well, I just want to clarify, I think I asked this at the previous meeting, but I don't quite recall the answer. On page 5-1, where it's talking about the different costs, and we do see that the total cost would be lower if we were to have this, if we were to have some kind of sludge tank. Do we know why the annual labor cost would go down by about nearly $5,000 if we had a sludge tank?
That is a great question. Jill, are you aware?
I believe there was an assumption made by the engineering firm that if sludge hauling was one time less a year, that it would save $5,000 a year of labor. I don't know that to be fully accurate, but that was an assumption that they made in their calculations.
Would you have to do less cleaning of stuff if you didn't always have all that fluid going through?
There is a possibility. That is where the time would be saved. So right now, this is going to be a comparison to human digestion, just so because that's what wastewater is. So basically, humans eat food and they drink fluids. They go through a digestive system and they go out two different systems, a liquid and a solid. Our wastewater treatment facility is intended to replicate human digestion. So the wastewater stream comes in, it's mostly liquids, it has some solids, it comes into the septic tanks, it does what's called primary settling and primary digestion. Then goes into the aeration tanks where it's infused with air. It gives air to these bugs to make them really happy and hungry so that they'll eat as much of the solids as possible. We then have pumps that bring that up and they bring them into the RBCs, which are rotating biological contactors. Those go aerobic and anaerobic, and that's another opportunity for the sludge bugs, the microbiology, to be hungry, to eat as much solids as possible, and to also start to thicken up. So as the liquids in the solid stream come into the clarifiers, the solids settle to the bottom, the liquids come up to the top. Those liquids go through a UV channel and they go out to our direct discharge at the river. The solids dump right back into those septic tanks where our float was coming in. That is not what you do. That would be like a human eating their solid waste. It is not appropriate digestion. That is why there's so much dirty in the UV and in the effluent weir, because what we are able to do for treatment in our RBCs and our clarifier is that same sludge doing circles every day. So it is quite possible that we would not have to clean the clarifiers and the clarifier troughs and the UV trough and the effluent trough every single day. So that is a good assumption as to a cost savings on labor.
Thank you, Jill. That's really helpful.
Jill, would we still have to add the settling agent with the sludge that we're adding now?
I wonder, because the reason we're adding that, which is the Holland Epic Wastewater 58, which is a polymer, is because we have pin flock. So pin flock is like teeny tiny little particles that just want to float. So we're adding this polymer because it has positive and negative ions charged to pull those teeny pieces together to turn them into a blob so they'll sink down. It very well could be that we have so much pin flock because the sludge is doing circles. I wouldn't know if it worked until I saw the results months later when it finally works its way out of the system and we truly just have just regular wastewater coming in, which is 99% water and 1% solids, instead of all of the clarifier sludge every single day coming in with the new wastewater every day. So, I mean, scientifically speaking, it should result in a better settling in the clarifier. I don't know another treatment plant that I run has a similar process to yours, but it has a sludge holding tank. They do still have to use polymer though. So I don't know for a fact that you wouldn't have to.
Okay, another question. With a sludge holding tank, we would be able to decant the water better than we do now. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, right now we can't decant water because the tanks are all hydraulically connected. So when the pump trucks come, we force them to push the tube all the way to the bottom where the sludge is, but the way that a pump truck works is that even when that tube is forced to the bottom to pull the solids out, it's still going to want to take the liquids. So we can't just pump sludge when we have the trucks come, even though we're pushing the tube and the hose all the way to the bottom, and the intention is to take the 4,000 gallons of solids off the bottom and leave the top. That's not really how it works. My guess is that each time they take 4,000 gallons of sludge out, they probably take 3,000 gallons of sludge and 1,000 gallons of water. So that would be awesome.
Frank?
I was wondering if the lot next door was brought into the picture as a potential option.
That was the reason that when the town got that at a tax sale, that we chose not to resell it, because we knew that there was a potential already at that point that we may need to add on to the sewer plant for some kind of sludge storage, so that's why we retained that lot.
And in the designs that we have here, it shows where the tanks would be. Like, for example, where's the cast in place one? On page 4-7, there's a little map here that shows the treatment building and where the tanks would be. And they would basically be on the foundation of Old Dutchies.
Yeah, the reason being, the sludge still needs to be accessed by pumper trucks in order to be removed and hauled to a sludge receiving facility. So that space that's just to the left of the facility, if you're facing the facility, has a pretty nice driveway space just before the foundation that's there that would allow a truck to kind of pull in and get off the road, pull the sludge out there, which would be great. And also, just to not create an unrealistic expectation, there still is primary settling that occurs in the septic tanks that would need to get pumped out probably maybe once or twice a year. But it wouldn't be 4 to 5 times a year. It would just be that once or twice a year based on that reaching the 4.5 feet that it currently reaches every 2 to 2.5 months now.
Does anybody else have any questions at this point? Okay, Devin, do you have more?
No, the only thing I want to add, and then hopefully get some sort of direction from you guys as to where to go next, is, if you'll recall, this was really born out of the West Pawlet master planning effort that you guys did several years ago. And I think the true intent originally was, how do we reduce the cost to the users and the town, right? Which I believe is budgeting some supplemental funding to sort of offset that rate increase. And this project so far isn't showing like a silver bullet that will show a significant decrease. There is some cost savings there, and over a time period that could be valuable in helping reduce that cost. I think one other aspect to consider with, moving forward in this direction is, what is that long-term solution that may support future development? As we know, through Act 181 and Act 250 reform, West Pawlet Village could be one of those towns that could see Act 250 relief from housing development, and thinking about, hey, is one way the true answer to reduce user costs by adding more users with future housing? And I think about, okay, is this a project that would support that future growth, increase tax revenue, and users to reduce the fees for the existing users? So something to consider is like, what's that long-term vision for West Pawlet Village, and would this project support that or not? Hoping that like everywhere in Rutland County, that this reform in Act 250 may result in some increased development. We haven't seen it yet, but that is the hope. So, I guess the question request from you all tonight is if you feel comfortable with it, selecting a preferred alternative to advance for sort of the next phase of this project would be the thing to do.
So it seems like you understand that basically, just 1 second, Jill. You understand that basically this project needs to be nearly completely funded because there's no way that we can put any more burden on the town or on the users
Absolutely.
to complete this project.
Yeah.
And how deep into the project can we get before we realize that we can't make it work? Do we have checks and balances along the way? So like, all right, this looks like this is going to get us in over our head, and we need to stop. There's way of advancing so that we don't get tied in or end up having to pay penalties and such like that.
So, great question. There is, at this point, there is zero risk to the town financially. We have committed the funding. The consultants are going to be paid through us. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense to go all the way, finish the study, and then we have some funding to support grant applications for the rest of 2025. So you can look at us as a sort of like, consultant in a way to get you to that point. Because I agree with you, this does not make sense at all, doing it with local funding or even a bond. That's not what we intended to do with this. However, if we can leverage our time, if the CDS application doesn't work, but there is another opportunity out there, let's chase down all the leads. And if there's 100% funding option out there, what does it hurt to apply without any commitment on the town? That's what we can do until December 31st, 2025. And we'd love to help you guys through that. So answer your question is no risk in every step here on out after the study is complete. We won't proceed without a confirmation from you all that is what you want to do.
Jill, you had your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to let you guys know, you guys have a treasure that you're not fully utilizing. So you guys have an entire wastewater treatment facility that's designed for an average daily flow of 40,000 gallons per day. Your average daily flow right now on an annual basis is less than 7,000 gallons per day. So you're only using 20% of your treatment capacity. So if there is any opportunity whatsoever in your community, in the surrounding areas, to have appropriate, good development where housing is being created. I love West Pawlet. I think it's a great spot. I think it's peaceful. It's close to all kinds of, it's close to New York. It's close to Massachusetts. It's not very far from Rutland. You've got a beautiful river there. You've got rolling fields. We have a major housing crisis in our state that there's not nearly enough housing for the people that are here. So I would just encourage you to know you guys have an entire functioning wastewater treatment facility and collection system that is being underutilized. So if there is an opportunity to work with your planning commission and to work with your town and to really attract people to come live in Pawlet and attract developers to come build in Pawlet and in West Pawlet more specifically, you have so much capacity that other towns do not have. Most have, they're not even allowed to put a new connection on the system because they're at capacity or they're over capacity and having to figure out what are they going to do. So you indeed have a treasure. So I would really encourage you, if there's an opportunity or opportunities that come up, to really welcome that growth in your town if you could, because you have something a lot of people don't have.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Julie?
Not so much a question as a comment. Oh, let's get you on.
Oh, yeah, microphone, please.
If this is no risk to the town until December 31st, chase the money while you can, because there's a high chance of not having money coming to us in the near future. So if it's out there right now, get it and, because Jill is correct, and at some point, there will come money again, and West Pawlet would be a great place to build up a little.
And even if something changes in the grant process over the next couple of years, all the engineering's done. So it's like a shovel it's one phase closer to,
Yeah, you'll have done all your due diligence at that point. You know,
so when the
dust
money
it off and
money becomes available in the future, we're one step ahead of everybody else to get at it.
Everyone always wants to do shovel-ready projects.
So, Bank.
So if the tank is utilized where the store property is, that's a primary sludge, and then there would be an overflow into the existing tank that's there, but it would have to only be out twice a year as opposed to 5 times a year. And it'd be probably less dense. And so this is an increased capacity of both the sludge and that in total. When Keith Mason was running the plant, at one point in time he said that the plant is so underutilized, he was wondering if he could just operate it a few days a week,
No,
like 3
because
days a
it's a
week.
direct discharge plant and the state does not allow that. We've gone over that question many times.
in this study did look at that again. Yeah.
So my question here is, and I kind of asked this at the previous meeting with the engineers, but I want to bring it up again. So since Jill has said that the alternative 2, I'm on page 5-2 here looking at the total costs, that the alternative 2 is probably not going to fly because of engineering reasons. And the glass lined one is just way too expensive. We've got alternatives 3 and 4 that are really the ones that seem feasible. And that's the cast in place or the precast, which I think with the precast, you would have to go with 2 of them to fill the capacity. And Jill, do you have a preference between those 2 that you can tell us about?
I guess I just have a little bit of opinion. With a precast, the nice thing about it is there'd be quality control as to the way that it's being developed in the specifications. You would think that the cast in place would also be the same with a resident engineer there, and they would be doing quality control on the concrete itself and the pours and everything else. But I guess I would just want to make sure that whichever one of those was selected, that it had like 100-year life, that it was meant to be a very long-term, low maintenance. I imagine that. Can you remind me, in the alternatives, does either one of them require pumping, or are they both gravity in order to return the fluids to the treatment plant so that we have as thick of a sludge as possible? Are they both gravity, or is one pump and one gravity? Because anything mechanical that can be avoided should be avoided.
Looks like there is, excuse me, both 3 and 4 have WAS pumping, a 3 horsepower, 100.
Gravity decant.
That's going in, though.
Okay, so out, then no.
Gravity decant back to existing septic tanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we want. So gravity decant is going to work for 100 years. That last pump is going to work for like 7 to 10.
Yeah.
And that will have to
Fantastic.
get replaced every 7 to 10 years, maybe rebuilt once or twice. And usually they're redundant pumps, so usually it means you've got 2. So anything mechanical is going to have a particular life cycle. But that, I guess, was the profile the same on both, or was one going to be more obtrusive in how much it was going to be sticking out?
Well, let's see. Here's the one that would be sticking out, and then the other one was, where was it?
Precast may be a little bit lower, that's
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
So when it comes to pump trucks, your typical sewer truck can pull, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 20 feet, and anything deeper than that's got to be done with a high back truck. So like an actual much more expensive like factor truck, like your spruce gum pump station, that's very deep. So like a sewer truck can't pull off the bottom of that one. So I guess whichever profile is gonna be the most cost effective for your pumping, I would say, and whichever tankage is gonna be the best quality and the longest life. And if all is equal, I would do whichever one is less expensive.
Yeah, the precast are just a little less expensive, I think.
Lower profile than the other storage.
The precasts are lower profile. And according to this, they would be, what's that? About around 40,000 less.
Well, if it saves money, the quality's gonna be there at the plant. Everything has got a nice long life guarantee. I just would consider still doing the one that's gonna be lower profile and less expensive.
It says that the precast tank in this earlier paper that the hauler truck would need to vacuum pump to empty contents of tank, but it doesn't say that about the cast in place.
See, that's what I'm wondering. Anything you can avoid mechanical, you want to avoid. Because anything mechanical, anything that's a pump is going to have a useful life of maybe 7 to 10 years. And anything that you have a pump in, there's going to need to be 2 of them because everything in water design and wastewater design requires redundancy.
But that would be the truck that would need the pump.
Right. Which
Are they saying, so
They'd
the
be
trucks
more
have
expensive.
pumps, but if they're saying that the tanks need a pump for the truck, so right now,
No. Is
your 2 front septic tanks have very awesome, expensive pumps in them that have never been used and are completely froze up and broken.
Both
maybe for
options
that
do
time.
say gravity flow. Mud valve.
They're for the pump truck to actually attach to in the front because the front tanks are so deep that a regular sewer truck can't get the sludge out of those very well.
This paper that was one of the earlier ones that I printed off today, on the disadvantage of the precast tanks, it says the hauler truck would need a vacuum pump to empty contents of tank, but it doesn't say that about the cast in place tank.
Okay, there's your answer. Don't add more pumping. It's gonna cost you more. It's gonna cost you more. in
Even though it's on the hauler
electricity, it's gonna cost
truck.
you more in pumps.
Okay. So then I guess that would say that Jill suggests the alternative 3.
The cast in place.
Which I do believe was Hoyle Tanner's recommendation as well. One other thing, even if that is the preferred alternative, I think there's money in the budget to have them chase down this repurposing of the existing septic tank a little bit further to say, okay, definitively we cannot do it.
I recall that from the previous meeting, they were thinking they could look into it and just give a second set of eyes on that information Jill got 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Just to make, double check that it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if we
Yeah, I
read,
mean, if there's a way to structurally engineer that happens to be more cost effective, here's the balancing act on that one that I'll just say out loud. That takes away 2 of your primary sludge holding tanks. So if you do develop in your town, I don't know that you still have a 40,000 gallon a day capacity and you don't have as much like power EPOP capacity. So if you have a power outage and you have liquids coming up in your storage tanks and for whatever reason that particular day your generator doesn't feel like firing up, you don't have as many hours of capacity if there's a long power outage, which so far your peak power outage has been like 3 hours. But that would be the other downside to repurposing those septic tanks would be if you wanted to use that 40,000 gallons a day and keep your EPOP storage, that's the only thing that would keep me from doing that one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
so what do you all on the board have any comments
Well, I think it's a good idea to continue forward investigating.
on which option do you think?
I would think the one where we don't need the vac truck, which is a cast in place.
Cast in place tank.
And it's 1 tank as opposed
Yeah.
to 2.
Yeah.
One of the things they also said in there was by casting it in place, you don't have to get in there and do any cutting or modifying to a precast tank. You don't have to core drill any holes, so you can get all that in place when you're pouring the tank. So
And again, the cost between the 3 and 4 alternatives is not that high. And they're
40,000 out of $1 million isn't
Well,
a huge
not quite a
portion.
million, but
Yeah.
close, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
and it depends also, like, that's an engineering estimate, it depends on the bidding landscape at the moment that the project is bid. If concrete prices are up, if labor prices are up, it's gonna come in a little higher no matter what. If everybody's having a tough year and everybody's looking for work, which happens sometimes, it happened in like 2007, 2008, people were bidding just to keep their workers employed. They weren't making a profit and prices came in super low. So it just kind of depends too. If your concrete workers in the area, they just absolutely need work and they got to keep the plant open, your chances are that your cast in place might actually be less expensive because it's going to be your local workers versus like a Camp Precast or an SD Griswold or whatever you guys have a little further south.
What do you think, Tom?
I agree. Yeah, and I like the idea of less maintenance that we have down the road. I mean, that is a value and a cost, so.
Oh God, yeah. It's every single pump that you put in a place is going to require, it's going to require maintenance, repairs, and replacements on a more often basis than you'd like. I mean, I wish that pumps lasted 20 or 30 years. They just don't, especially in wastewater.
Jessica?
yeah, I agree with going with
Well,
alternative 3. I mean,
alternative
I
three.
trust Jill's
Right.
expertise here.
Robert?
I just, going from, who designed the original wastewater plant and who's just done the upgrades over the years, designed the upgrades?
Jill?
You had Dufresne Henry or
Dufresne Henry did
Henry
that.
that did one in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then Green Mountain Engineering did your upgrade in like 2012, and that was when they didn't do any process change. You just had redundancy change. So you had before and one RBC and one clarifier, and they brought you in a package plant. So you now have 2 RBCs and 2 clarifiers, which meets the redundancy that you didn't get sludge holding.
Right. We got the variable speed to save electricity and because we weren't getting the volume and stuff like that, so. All right,
Oh, yep.
thank you.
Frank?
I was just wondering on the development issue, if development could occur in other parts of town with a tank system, could that septic combination, both solids and liquid, be transported to the plant and utilized to basically come up to the 40,000 capacity? Because we can, obviously, the septic coming from someplace could come from any place. And so that would be able to do development virtually anywhere in town if that could be offloaded and processed in that plant. Transported
So
in.
it's typically done by pump station because if you're trying to truck things, you're going to spend a small fortune. So it's usually done by pump station and force main. So wherever you want to develop, if you want to be able to utilize the West Pawlet wastewater treatment facility and collection system, you got to get the wastewater to the facility, or at least to the last spot where there's a gravity manhole to flow it to the facility. So pump stations, force mains.
Yeah, one of the issues in West Pawlet is land trust properties that limit development and expansion. The zoning in the last bylaws, we allowed for vertical expansion with fire codes and stuff being applied there, which could add users. So that would be the main issues is expansion limitations, unless we could bring in something from other locations who would be ratepayers on this.
Okay, so Jill, I think what if there was a holding tank, say over on this side of town? Could it be trucked over, or is there something start to occur in the holding tank that makes it not?
Yes. So as wastewater ages, like as it sits for more than 12 hours, 24 hours, it becomes septic. So the bugs get very unhappy and they start dying and they make a horrible, horrible smell. It's sulfur, it's sulfuric acid. It's nasty and it eats concrete, it eats metal. You don't let wastewater sit. That's why, like, you know, in a residential septic tank, you've got your sludge sitting in the bed of the septic tank. You've got your fluids on the top. They're flowing out to the leach field. The solids that are down at the bottom of the tank are getting fed on a daily basis as you're using your water and things are going down the drain. When it just sits there in a pump station, it's not a septic tank. It's a pump station, and it's got like 1% solids, and it's got 99% liquids and all kinds of nitrogen. So it's you don't want to hold wastewater for long periods of time. It's got to be like, it needs to move. So like, if anybody, have you ever driven by a pump station and smelled just like a horrible smell coming out of like the little candy cane, that's the air release, and then like, wow. That's age. So if it sits there way too long and it starts to age, it's super duper stinky. It's also, my concern would be the cost of trucking. So like, would you need to have, let's say it was you had a 40,000 gallon tank. So if a residential household is producing, say, 500 gallons a day, you'd have, what, 500 gallons a day? You'd have to truck a lot of the time. So 500 gallons a day, and let's say it was 20 households. That's 10,000 gallons a day. In 4 days, you'd have 40,000 gallons. Because again, wastewater's mostly water, but it needs to go through the settling process, and then the fluids, the leachate, need to go do their thing and be either sent to a leach field or sent out of the end of a wastewater treatment plant. So it's way more fluid than you think it is. And trucking is really expensive.
Okay.
Mike, I just want to keep just a little
Yes.
time
Time.
reminder.
Real quick.
What about filtered gray water being transported and,
All right,
and
we're
fin-
getting off
finished off?
topic, Frank. Sorry
Go
about that.
solid.
We got to wrap this up. Devin, it appears that the board is all in favor of option 3. Would somebody like to make a motion about that?
I can make that motion. I'll move that we ask Rutland Regional Planning Commission to move forward with alternative 3 for the wastewater treatment facility.
Do you have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, Devin.
Thank you all for the time tonight. Really appreciated the discussion, and we'll be seeing you all soon. We're going to be scheduling some meetings to get out and talk to you about the regional future land use map. So looking forward to that. We'll be reaching out. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Jill, thank you very much for joining
Thank you,
us
Jill.
tonight and all your help on this project. Have a good
You're
evening.
welcome. You guys take care. And if you have questions, just shoot them my way.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Zoning Administrator, Nancy?
I have nothing to report.
Well, thank you very much. Planning Commission.
You're welcome.
Good to see you, Deb.
See you guys.
Good night.
We deferred our organizational thing until we had more members at the next meeting. And that's all we have to report there.
Okay. Any questions for the Planning Commission? Road Foreman?
So Damon culminated his time with the town as the end of last week. So we've got our 2 remaining team members, Mike and Jim, who are spot grading and hauling stone as the weather allows. Next week, if they get weather that can cooperate, they're going to begin some ditch work. One of the Mack trucks needed a sensor replaced, which they had done, and should be back to town tomorrow. And then Jim expressed interest. So right now there's a leaf blower that's attached to the tractor that we got, I think it was last year. But Jim had mentioned that they were hoping to get a handheld or a backpack leaf blower, so he provided some pricing for that, which I have here tonight. And then just one other follow-up too. So at the last meeting, there was that ski door quote that came up that we were all like, what's the ski door quote for? So I did talk to Damon about that, and what happened was there seemed to have been a power surge that happened over in West Pawlet that fried all 3 of the mechanisms to, I'm guessing to open the doors over at the garage. So that quote was to replace those. And so in talking to him about it, the thought came up about perhaps submitting that as an insurance claim, since it was fried likely by a power storm. So if everybody's on board with that, I was remembering when there was the issue when the ice or snow or whatever it was slid off the roof at the library and damaged somebody's car. We submitted an insurance claim just through the VLCT portal online. So I'd be happy to do that again if that's what everybody would like to do. I think we kind of linked up on that, but it was just, we've got the quote already for ski door, and I was thinking if I needed to, I could just reach out to them and see if they could put something in writing just supporting the fact that they suspected it came from a storm.
I think I have the quote in my email, and I can
I've
get
got
into
it
the
too.
portal, and I can do that tomorrow. I can put that on my list of things
Okay,
to do.
perfect. And then if they need something, if we need any more,
Documents.
I was gonna say,
Ski door.
I was gonna
Ski
say
stories.
gusto, like behind the insurance claim. We can just
Yeah, I can let you know. if
Okay.
there's, like,
Yeah, it was super easy last time. They were really, really nice. So, but yeah,
We're all in favor of supporting that. That was a few $1,000s for that.
It was
Might
like-
as well give it a
it
shot,
was like
right?
over
I
3,000.
mean, that's what we have insurance for, is
Right.
for that kind of thing, so.
Unexpected. Okay.
And then so the leaf blowers. So he quoted out, so the handheld leaf blowers, the cheapest option would be $200. The most expensive option for handheld would be $380. And then for backpack, the cheapest option is $350, and the most expensive would be about $590. So
Where did he get the quote from?
it was, I'm not sure. Do you know?
Jim just brought some prices over this afternoon.
Okay.
I think he just quickly put something together. I think
Well,
he could spend some more time getting more prices.
I would strongly recommend Stokowski's. Gary's bought Echo blowers from them, and they're far superior to the Husqvarna or the Shindawas that he used to buy. And Stokowski's is close, and
Sure.
they can fix them quick, and the
Yeah,
prices
that's a
are
great
really
idea.
good. So,
And maybe that's who he did contact, I'm not sure.
but I would recommend that we want a backpack blower. We don't want a hand blower, because the wet leaves in the ditch it's just going to be baloney, and the backpacks are good. But the Echo ones that Gary buys would easily do what we need to do from the town work without
Well,
a lot of effort.
I'll report to Jim tomorrow. And
Yeah.
then-
Another $100 on something like that is well worth the
And
money,
if
in
we
my
can get some
opinion.
service.
Right.
It's really good service there, so.
And then the last thing that I had to add, so the job was posted, and we've been kind of putting the word out, and there are about 4 people so far that have expressed interest in the foreman position. So 1 new applicant, and so have set up an interview with that person. And yeah, everybody so far seems like really good. They've got a lot of potential. They all have CDLs. They have experience. They're relatively local, which is really cool. So it's promising to hear or to see that we've got some good traction on that. So next board meeting, we'll probably anticipate an executive session to talk a little bit more about personnel business. But other than that, I think that's all from roads.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Anything from the assessors? Town clerk.
So Deb submitted a report to everybody. There are 2 rental contracts for use of the town hall auditorium. On May 3rd, the request is for a fundraiser for the Pawlet Food Pantry with a request to waive the fee. And on the 15th is a historical society event, which this is good. I had put that under facilities, so we can cross that off. Also with the request to waive the fee. I'm looking at the calendar real quick just to make sure. I know that there was no issues with the historical society event. Bear with me real quick. There's also no issues with the, from what I can tell on the Google Calendar, there's no issues with the food pantry. So there will need to be motions and signatures on that. There are 2 notices from the A&R, which is here. If you want to look at those. For Bob, there are 5 excess weight permits that need to be signed. And you all received, I think everybody received a photo during one of our recent storms. Guessing from a couple of weeks back, it appears that there was a major leak through the ceiling upstairs. As you can see from the pictures, there was damage to the stabilized ceiling, as evidenced by the debris on the floor. Deb believes that this has been a trouble spot in the past due to the older watermark alongside the newer watermark. And she made sure to say that this is not an April Fool's joke on the pictures that she put. A new deputy health officer needs to be appointed tonight, effective 5/1, as per the Department of Health. Unfortunately, we're too late for it to be effective today, April 1st. And Deb will not be in attendance tonight, but we can contact her if we have any questions. So, in summary, we need to take action on the 2 town hall auditorium requests, the excess weight permits, and the
Town
health
health
officer.
officer. Who wants to make a motion that we allow those 2 parties to use the upstairs?
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion about the food pantry and the historical society using the town hall with the fees waived? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Deputy Town Health Officer, we did some email back and forth today, and Bob Morlino was, and he said that he would take it again, with Jennifer being the senior, and so that's all good there. I need a motion.
Sure, I'll make that one. I move that we appoint Bob Morlino as the Deputy Health Officer, effective May 1st.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Did you sign the permits, Bob?
Yes.
The rest of it's up to Bob. Okay. So Bob will just have to connect with Deb and get that. Thank you.
Pass these on down.
Okay.
Thanks.
Roofers. Who's
We did the slate a couple years back,
David last time.
Dave Armstrong? Yeah.
and it seemed like it held for a while, but it's just got to be a new problem in the same spot.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, or even a different spot. It's just that's where it all runs down to inside the.
What do you think, Slate Man?
Yeah. It's in the roof.
It's in the roof, yeah. It's not
Without
shedding a
looking
lot
at it,
of-
I would hate to guess.
Do you have, Dave Armstrong came and worked on it a few years ago. Do you have any suggestions or, you know,
Well, have we ever used Jeff Kelly?
we have on occasion, but I think he didn't have, didn't he say he didn't have
Proper.
equipment to get up on the roof?
Okay. But yeah, no, I would definitely recommend
Would you be able to get a hold of him?
David Armstrong.
Somebody?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. So we're good with that. That's nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything more on the town clerk? Julie?
I have 2 warrants this week. Payrolls, $14,710.68. Accounts payables, $20,854.10. The accounting of that is general fund, $15,586.88. Highway, $16,720.27. And wastewater, $32,57.63. This morning I attended a Vermont League of Cities and Towns webinar that was titled Grant Basics Before the Grant, which is the first in a series of grant-related webinars that they're holding. So that's all I have today, just the 2 warrants. For action.
I'll move that we approve payroll warrant 25058 and accounts payable warrant 25059 in the amounts listed here.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I did have one other thing on the, that I forgot to put in here, but Frank had asked me to come up with about a report for the Planning Commission on what is left on that mini grant, which I haven't done yet, but I will tell you it's a smidge under 1,000. And we also received, he also spoke to someone at the state who sent an email that was forwarded on that said that while items can't be purchased from that specific mini grant towards the big grant, it can be used in some capacity, like for the Rutland Regional Planning Commission or consultant work. It did, that's what it said. So my recommendation at this time is to actually use that money for something that is fruitful towards that big project, because we're highly likely to overspend on it. So that's my recommendation.
Frank?
I spoke with Grace on this, and Grace says it has to be used exclusively for the purposes of education relative to the MERC grant. It had to be used for the MERC grant stuff, and so we're going to be, the Planning Commission is the energy group, and they're going to be talking about this at the meeting for a group decision as to what they want to do as far as putting forward more educational materials in regards to this intended purpose of that mini grant, as Grace, per Grace's instructions on the phone. So that's how that's working forward. We're working
But
on
if we can put it toward the other grant, that makes more sense.
She said no, it cannot be. Flat out, she said no, and she spelled it out in the email.
In the email, it said it could be used for a consultant. In the email.
Right, but related to that other factor. Anyways,
Okay.
that's the, so we're going to be talking about it at the Planning Commission meeting. That'll be on, one of the topics, because it's on the agenda already.
Anything else for Julie?
I recommend at least a freeze on that grant before any more money is spent on things like this.
Well, yeah, we're not spending any of that money till we talk more about it. So. Everything's set on that. Emergency management.
I don't.
Nothing from Bob tonight?
Unless I just got something. I've got my email pulled up. Make sure. Nothing tonight, sorry.
Health officer, anything from Jennifer?
Jennifer emailed me earlier and said that she attended a meeting about asbestos since our last meeting, but otherwise nothing new to report.
Okay. Facilities. We've been able
So
to,
we've dealt with the Historical Society. The email went out to everybody, I think last week maybe I forwarded it along, but just so everybody is aware, the Historical Society event is, they're joining as, Vermont is joining as America is celebrating the 250th anniversary for its fight in independence. So the request is also to utilize the auditorium and the town green, and there is going to be a full celebration. So just a little blurb about that.
I have an update about the door repair.
Okay.
It was my job to get in touch with Meg Campbell from the Historic Preservation Trust and about it, and I did. And she asked how extensive the repairs needed to be on the door, which she needed to know in order to decide whether it would be a sympathetic repair. And I asked Julie and Deb, who indicated that it's not just a small repair, we would have to fully replace the door. Is that correct? As far as you know? Yeah, small fixes have been tried. The whole thing needs to just be replaced. So I got back to her and let her know that, and she has not followed up with me yet. It's been a couple days on, but I'm going to assume since it is a large repair, we're going to have to get her okay on it. But she's going to let me know what the next steps are to get her okay before we go ahead and repair the door.
Okay.
And I did wonder, was part of the door damage to the door from that vandalism incident we had a while ago? Somebody like kicked it or tried to get in or something.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely got messed up at that point.
I remember, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it helped.
Oh, I'm sure the door was still old before that.
Yeah,
but
I think that's when that, well, no, there's been a lot.
Yeah.
The latch wasn't working.
Yeah,
like,
that
super
latch
well
wasn't
after
working,
that.
but then the little thing over the middle of the two doors, that was added because after the latch was damaged, fingers began to jam in the door.
Mm-hmm.
So then the thing in the middle was added. So there's been a lot. I mean, we've tried real hard with that door, but I think the time has come.
So I
has come.
I will let the board know when she gets back with me about what kind of like pre-approval steps we need to do regarding.
If you want, let me know if she gets back to you and I can add it. I'll add it to next
I will.
time.
She probably will. I'm sure.
Okay, I'll add it.
Yeah.
I'll keep it on there.
Okay. Anything else on facilities? Tom's gonna deal with the.
Yeah, I got a question. What are we supposed to, when we reach out to someone to do work, what are they supposed to have? What's their requirements to be approved?
Yeah.
David tells that we have his information and insurance.
Right.
In general
You need it
insurance.
But you need it annually,
Right.
so
So-
it's actually
So we-
probably a good idea to like get together with me and get a
1099?
no,
W9.
that's what yes, thank you. And it might be a good idea to consider in the future having a policy for like contracted service people that you have in your pocket. So things like asking them if they carry their own workman's comp insurance, because for instance, when we are audited, if we hire people and we issue them a 1099 and they don't have workman's comp insurance, we end up paying more on our insurance to cover the fact that while they worked for us, they didn't have their own coverage.
Okay. So that's correct. We should have certificate of liability from everybody that does any work for us. Okay.
Yeah, Karen, my question. If they have anybody working with them, they need to have a workers' compensation certificate too.
Right. Wastewater, I think we've discussed everything we wanted to discuss about that. Meadowy School Board, do you have a
Yep.
community report?
Oh, of course.
At our regular meeting on March 10th, Meadowy Board elected officers, appointed members to the BRSU Board, the Policy Committee, and their bargaining council. We set the meeting dates for the year, reflected on the annual meeting, and heard a school goals update. A significant amount of time was spent discussing legislative activity regarding education governance and finance reform. It auto-corrected to fiance reform.
I noticed that.
I'm sorry. That's hilarious.
I did notice that earlier. I was like, sweet.
I will correct that. So anyways, bringing us back around, it's been a very, very busy year regarding legislative activity, specifically regarding redistricting and a completely new way of financing education. So right now it's been really crazy on the education front, and regarding the finance part of that, I anticipate next year, maybe starting even as soon as later this summer, it's going to go crazy in this office on what direction this thing goes. I heard testimony from earlier this week where they're considering 9 different classifications for tax rates on property. So it's going to get crazy on the municipal side as well. Just keep your ears out and be ready for some fun stuff. Anyways, we as a school board are encouraging everyone to stay engaged in the process and reach out to us or attend our meetings to participate in this really important conversation. Our next regular board meeting will be April 14th, Rupert Firehouse on Google Meet. Somewhere in here, I thought I had a sentence that we also had a follow-up special meeting on March 24th because I did have one member who hadn't taken their oath of office, so we had to ratify all of the motions and seconds that person had made at the organizational meeting, and all of those meeting minutes are available on our website. Lastly, we do want to request the use of the Town Hall Auditorium on May 19th, August 11th, and January 12th of 26.
Any conflicts with that, Kristen?
No, I already added them to the calendar actually.
Okay.
Because I imagined you'd all approve that with just excitement.
Let's just go with a motion and right now. And
All right, sure. I move that we approve the school board's request for the Town Hall Auditorium on those 3 dates that Julie listed.
I'll second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any other questions for Julie? Pawlet Public Library, you guys, nothing to speak? Okay, great. Older unfinished business.
Okay, sorry, jumping again.
I have one thing under there. I had on my list to, as the representative to the Communications Union District, to ask about what's going on with that West Pawlet Wi-Fi spot. And I guess that you had got with them, Julie, and did they ever get back to you yet? So I pestered their bosses. And so they said they're going to light a fire under the people who are supposed to get back to you.
Okay, I will add that to my list of things to do tomorrow as well, is to send another follow-up email with a concern about why it's taking so long to receive a response.
Excellent. And CC me on it.
Will do.
As the representative to the Communication Union District. Then, and just as a heads up to all Pawlet people in the town of Pawlet who are on the Fidium fiber, which is the high-speed internet that we got put in through the CUD. If anybody has problems with those people with Fidium or their customer service, since I'm the representative to the CUD, you can ask me, and I have some names I can escalate things to.
Excellent.
So we can kind of jump the middleman and get help for people if they have a problem. Oh, and the other update from the CUD is that last that we heard, for the long drops, like if someone has a really long driveway, they were going to go up to 750 feet, but they have new technology now. They can go to 2,000 feet.
That's cool.
And
Good
free
for
of
them.
charge to the homeowner. So,
Frank?
I've been since October, practically every month contacting them, and they promised that they're gonna have somebody get in touch with me to set it up. And, thank you. I've contacted, and nobody has gotten back at all. And I've got the numbers and some people that supposedly are key people, but they're gonna, and somebody's supposed to contact.
So we're on it now, so.
And so that's the problem.
so send me an email, Frank, and I'll forward it to the 2 contacts I have.
Okay. That's
We'll see
good.
if we can get it done.
Okay,
Since October.
Another thing under old or unfinished business, Bob Morlino has asked a representative of the select board be with him when he tries to negotiate with one of the landholders for the gravel pit, larger access road. And he was wondering if Jessica would, and you said you would.
I would, yeah, as long as I know are we trying to, as long as I know what the terms are that we're trying to negotiate for.
Well,
If Bob knows, I can just be there as a select board person.
he pretty much
Yeah,
knows.
he
We
does.
basically,
He does,
we
yeah.
need to have a 25-foot driveway
Yeah.
to get to the gravel
And
pit.
we're happy with the right-of-way or a land purchase,
Okay, all right,
as long as we can get
There's-
a wide enough access up in there,
Right.
okay.
so.
Okay, and what else? Another thing that came, I don't know if this is there anything else under older unfinished or new business? This is kind of right on the edge of both. But the turkey plaque.
Oh, well, okay, so that, all right. So next, at the next, the turkey plaque.
Turkey plaque.
Okay, so that was preemptive because at our next meeting, this is going to get everybody hyped up for our next meeting, but we have 2 pre-requested appearances. One is the Fish and Wildlife, who they're going to continue to speak to the board and give a presentation about Pawlet's involvement in turkey, turkeys.
Reintroducing the
The
wild.
reintroduction of turkeys. So I was informed that, sorry, I just got myself all frazzled. I was informed that part of what they're going to talk to us all about is putting up a plaque or some sort of thing here in the town to acknowledge our involvement. So instead of the board being talked to at the next meeting about a plaque or a monument or what have you and having everybody go, what do we think? I have told you about it now so that at the next meeting you will be prepared to receive this thought. So that's all. Nothing to be discussed about it tonight. Somebody's going to be coming to talk to you at the next meeting. What I will share is that, so basically Stan Decker contacted me because a relative of his is directly involved in this initiative with Fish and Wildlife. So he was talking to him. So it would be fully funded by Fish and Wildlife. So some things to consider are where we might like to have this and what it might like to be. I suggested a bronze casting of a turkey in the green, which I was kidding, mostly kidding about. But anyway, so just think about that for the next time. Yes, and right, I know. And then the other thing, just so everybody is prepared, at our next meeting is there's going to be a representative from the conservation group about that property acquisition that we had talked about. There was a little bit of confusion. They had thought they were going to attend that last meeting, Mike, when you had spoke to it and said that currently it was confidential. And they would like to come to the meeting to talk to the board a little bit more about that process. So anyways, those are going to be 2 pre-requested appearances at our next meeting.
I had a thought about the turkey plaque.
Okay.
And since Bob was mentioning that some of the turkeys were reintroduced right by his house at his Uncle Nettie's farm there, and that it's a historic site type of event, maybe we should ask the Pawlet Historical Society if we could put the plaque at the Braintree School, because that's very close to the area that the turkeys were reintroduced.
It was actually
introduced on Malcolm's farm.
On Malcolm's
At the
farm
same
also?
time. Yeah, check
But,
Clark Road and the other house.
right, there's a lot of places,
There's a lot
but
of
no,
places.
no
No, we,
formal place to put a,
we don't want it out behind Matt's house. Yeah.
but, right. So I just thought, being that that's already a historical site right there, why wouldn't it make sense that that all went together?
Yeah, yeah.
Couldn't it be something like village green, so everyone will see it?
Well, but the idea is to lure the boat,
Just talk off a
just
little bit.
to get them over to the school and have more
Right,
going
but
on
there's
there.
really, there's no other,
Yeah.
no, we're,
we don't know how large the plaque will be. It could be this big, it could be a billboard. Or it could be a life-size turkey, who knows?
That's what we heard here tonight.
You heard it here first.
Specialize in bronze casting or
I know.
things like that.
Yeah.
Get a statue, right?
That's right.
Porter and Mary Brown's turkey, yeah.
so,
Anyway.
that's just a thought.
Okay.
There we go.
Here we go.
One CCB application.
Yep, so that came into the email and everybody received that. So
Anybody have any questions about that? Or?
That was a renewal, right?
It looked like,
So, yes, I'm not sure.
And
Or
how-
did it
I don't
change?
remember, it looked fine.
Or did it change the size?
It is a
okay.
tier 4 indoor cultivator
Okay.
renewal.
Renewal,
Okay.
okay, so that's,
I think the name was maybe different than it was last
Okay.
time of the business.
so, somebody wanna make a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the new CCB application that came through with the number that's attached to it that Kristen has.
Yes, S0000111754.
Yes.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any other new business?
Yes.
2 others.
Thank you. Yes. Hold on 1 second, please. All right, so let me gather myself real quick. All right, so John Weiss, the chief of the Pawlet Volunteer Fire Department. Did everybody get this email?
I did,
All
but
right.
it was right before the meeting.
Okay, so the Pawlet Volunteer Fire Department has been working to replace their 2004 Ford brush truck. They plan to replace this truck with a more versatile vehicle that is better suited to their operational needs, building on their existing capabilities and adding some valuable new ones. They are intending to purchase a pickup truck chassis at a flatbed and outfit it into a multi-purpose fire apparatus. As you likely know, the state of Vermont has contract pricing established for vehicles. The option to purchase vehicles on this state contract is extended to municipalities, but not to non-municipal entities such as our fire department. We write today to inquire if the town might be amenable to purchasing this pickup truck on our behalf and transferring ownership to the PVFD. The fire department would reimburse the town for the purchase price and any other costs incurred, such as registration fees, etc. We are exploring a variety of options for this new truck, including closeouts and the used market, but it would be helpful to us to know if buying it through the Vermont state contract is an avenue that is open to us. And that's that.
I can't think of any reason why that wouldn't be a good idea.
I just don't know if there's anywhere where anybody's been, there's gonna be any.
Is that common practice?
Oh, I have no idea. I know nothing.
It's interesting because in the 90s, we bought a fire truck through the Vermont state bidding process. West
And then
Pawlet did.
transferred it?
Yeah, I wrote the specs for it. We put it right in with the state specs and.
And then the town was reimbursed?
No, we bought it direct, is how it worked back then, but I'd like to just make sure that that's, so that nobody gets,
They're just looking for the town discount.
right, the state discount, which makes perfect sense. I just don't understand why a
It
volunteer
seems-
fire department shouldn't be,
Qualified.
It seems
Shouldn't be
too
qualified
bad
for that,
that a
too.
fire department wouldn't be eligible for that.
yeah, because it was when we
Yeah.
did it in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could do that for them.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
volunteer
So,
fire department, so-
Is what I'm hearing that you want clarification that that's okay
Right.
from a legal
That's a-
legal
Yeah,
a
that's a legal,
perspective?
that's a legal practice.
So do we want to ask the
If he could-
VLCT?
I guess John needs to reach out to whoever's in charge of that purchasing process and say, hey, can the town buy it? We reimburse them. Is anybody going to get in hot water over that?
And John may know if this is a common thing that other fire departments
Sure.
do also.
Okay.
Or does the town select board write a note saying that they can?
Right.
And that, I think, would come from
On
our leagues.
our behalf, yeah.
But I think trying to buy it under the town and then transferring it over to the firehouse, I think you get into some red tape.
That's the biggest thing. It may turn into quite a lot of,
So you'd like to support the fire department in this purchase, but want to make sure that you're going about it the right way?
right,
Okay.
Correct.
Frank?
You might want to bring in that the fire district still exists, and this would be servicing the fire district. So, and that would be maybe swinging the whole thing.
But the fire district is not buying it. The volunteer fire department is buying it.
Servicing the district.
Thanks.
And that's why I'm thinking that they, on our behalf, we could
I don't understand why that couldn't be a viable option. It seems
Should be
like there
straightforward.
should be some way to.
Well, I will talk to John and I'll let him know about all of this and see if he can do a little bit more research, and if he needs anything from the town,
Yeah.
I can be in touch with the VLCT and go from there.
Go from there.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And then the next thing, did you have something that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know if the board has been presented with the new policies.
I have not seen the new policies.
You guys don't have copies of the policies. Deb didn't hand those out, I'm assuming. Okay.
No.
We'll have to get those to you. We've updated the policies and procedures for the constabulary. They're updated frequently from VCLT. We just want to stay current with that so that we're covered legally and governed and guided by those policies so that we don't get jammed up. So if you could review that and then consider adopting those policies so we can get them in place, and that would be good for us.
Okay. Can you get those so that you can send them out electronically to us?
I do have them on email. I can email it to the board. There's some that are mandated.
Chris, if you get it to Kristen, she can
Yeah.
share it with the rest of us.
Certainly. There's some that are mandated by the state statutorily, and there are some that are elected that apply to our situation here. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you. Any other new business? I think we're good. Public comment.
Anybody else? Okay,
Get the microphone.
Frank?
Oh.
I want my own.
No, you're not getting your own.
No.
Yes, I can shut it off.
Kristen and I were talking about the images that I was going to show you. It's just a walk through the both buildings, essentially. It doesn't take that much time, but we're using a lot of time tonight, and it would fit better with a pre-requested, according to Kristen, maybe, and possibly she might have her new computer, and I would be able to utilize the computer, so it's friendly with all this whole thing here. And so I'm delaying all that until we can fit it into a pre-requested. And the other thing is that the MERP project, the importance of having solar is to produce money to basically offset heat pump usage in both buildings. And that, according to Grace, is something that is allowed on another town property. It doesn't have to be on the library property or town hall property. And you have, so that's something that is possible, and she's looking into whether or not we can contract with another existing solar array to lease the part of it and get the return, and just basically have a monetary deposit of money that basically would help us with the future ongoing year upon year operation of the heat pumps. She's checking on that. So I would be getting back to her as the energy coordinator and fulfilling the state statute requirements, which is basically getting this type of information and giving it to the select board or the planning commission. That's all that's going to do. So I'll keep you updated as to how that might develop.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My question for Frank is, are you keeping Rutland Regional Planning Commission, who is administering this grant for us, in the loop with what you're talking about as well?
The copies to them, and
Great.
I talked to Devin about it, and Jeremy, it's a carbon copied the stuff, and I will be keeping them abreast of that direction, which would be very helpful, because without the solar, and you'll have the ongoing operation of basically air conditioners, either operating as air conditioners or as heat pumps, both, and the cost of that when...
What are we going to do for the next 2 weeks, Frank?
What's next 2 weeks?
Shut everything down?
For what?
Never mind. That's public comment.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Frank. We'll keep you in the loop.
You don't have to shut it off. Leave it on.
Anybody else have any public comment? Bob?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you all.